Bendición. When things fall apart. Part 16. Servants of peace. I'm looking at my I have my book from when we went to church. Um and it said for serving for others is how the saints became saints, by serving. Service is love in action. It's karma yoga, union through service to others. I was just reading that. I didn't realize that number 16 was servants of peace. What makes the paramitas different from ordinary action is that they are based on prajna. Prajna is a way of seeing that continually dissolves any tendency to use things to get ground under your feet, a kind of bullshit detector that protects us from becoming righteous. That's a little blurb on the top. Suppose there were a place we could go to learn about the art of peace, a sort of boot camp for spiritual warriors. Instead of spending hours and hours disciplining ourselves to defeat the enemy, we could spend hours and hours dissolving the causes of war. Such a place might be called the Bodhisattva training, or training for servants of peace. The word Bodhisattva refers to those who have committed themselves to the path of compassion. The boot camp might be run by Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. More likely, it would be run by people we've never seen or heard of, just ordinary men and women from all over the world who devote their lives to helping others be free of pain. The methods we learn as the Bodhisattva training might include meditation practice and Tonglen. They might also include the 6 paramitas, the 6 activities of the servants of peace. The word parimata means going to the other shore. These actions are like a raft that carries us across the river of samsara. The paramats are also called transcendent actions because they are based on going beyond the conventional notions of virtue and non-virtue. They train us in stepping beyond the limitations of dualistic views altogether and developing a flexible mind. One of the main challenges of this camp would be to avoid becoming moralistic. With people coming from all nations, there would be many conflicting opinions about that. With people coming from all nations, there would be many conflicting opinions about what was ethical and what was unethical, about what was helpful and what was not. Very soon, we'd probably need to request the most tamed and awakened people there to lead a course on flexibility and humor. In his own way, Trungpa Rinpoche devised such a course for his students. He'd have us memorize certain chants. And a few months after most of us knew them, he changed the wording. He'd teach us specific In his own way, Trungpa Rinpoche revised such a course for his students. He'd have us memorize certain chants, and a few months after most of us knew them, he changed the wording. He'd teach us specific rituals and be extremely precise about how they should be done. Just about the time we began criticizing people who did them wrong, he'd teach the rituals in a completely different way. That's funny. You're doing it wrong. There's a story about a monk who lived on his own in a lake, like off a lake, and he was by himself alone doing meditations and his own practice, spiritual practice. And these monks, other monks, or priests or whatever, went out to him, and they were trying to save him, give him the word. And they said, hey, this is the spiritual practice you need to be following. And they're like, what are you doing out here? And he told them the practice he was doing. And they were like, you're doing it wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. And they gave him a list of things that he should be doing. And he was like, oh, okay. And so they took off, they left. And then the guy was like, thinking like he had forgot something. So as they were like off on their boat leaving, he ran on water and approached them and said, hey, what was that thing that you told me that I had to be doing? And then they saw him like walking on water, and they were just like, oh no, just keep doing what you were doing. Keep doing whatever you were doing. That's funny. I don't know. Because people tell you like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Huh. So he'd have us memorize certain chants, and a few months after most of us knew them, he changed the wording. He'd teach us specific rituals and be extremely precise about how they should be done. Just about the time we began criticizing people who did them wrong, he'd teach the ritual in a completely different way. I think that's so funny. We would print up nice manuals with all the correct procedures, but usually they were outdated before they came off the press. After years of this sort of training, one begins to relax one's grip. If today the instruction is to put everything on right, one does that as impeccably as one can. When tomorrow the instruction is to put everything on the left, one does that with the whole heart. The idea of one right way sort of dissolves into the mist. Meditation and Tonglen are well-tested methods for training in adaptability and letting go of a rigid mindset. The 6 paramount's complement these practices and bring the training into all the activities of our life. They become the means for making everything we do a way of living, the art of peace. What makes the paramitas different from ordinary action is that they are based on prajna. Prajna is the way of seeing that continually dissolves any tendency to use things to get ground under your feet. A kind of bullshit detector that protects us from becoming righteous. When we are training in the art of peace, we are not given any promises that because of our noble intentions, everything will be okay. In fact, there are no promises of fruition at all. Instead, we are encouraged to simply look deeply at Instead, we are encouraged to simply look deeply at joy and sorrow, at laughing and crying, at hoping and fearing, at all that lives and dies. We learn that what truly heals is gratitude and tenderness. It isn't that we say, it doesn't matter about me all that much, but if I changed the world, it would be better for other people. It's less complicated than that. We don't set out to save the world. We set out to wonder how other people are doing and to reflect on how our actions affect other people's hearts. The 5 transcendent actions are generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, and meditation. These are inseparable from the 6th, the prajna. That makes it impossible to use our actions as ways of becoming secure. Prajna is the wisdom that cuts through the immense suffering that comes from seeking to protect our own territory. The very words generosity, discipline, patience, and exertion may have rigid connotations for many of us. They may sound like a heavy list of shoulds and shouldn'ts. They might remind us of school rules or the preaching of moralists. However, these paramitas are not about measuring up. If we think they are about achieving some standard of perfection, then we'll feel defeated to even begin. It is more accurate to express the paramatas as a journey of exploration, not as commandments carved in a rock. The first paramata is generosity, the journey of learning how to give. When we feel inadequate and unworthy, we hoard things. We are so afraid of losing, afraid of feeling even more poverty stricken than we do already. This stinginess is extremely sad. We could look into it and shed a tear that we grasp and cling so fearfully. This holding on causes us to suffer greatly. We wish for comfort, but instead we reinforce aversion. The sense of sin and the feeling that we are a hopeless case. This causes aggression, and fear begins to dissolve by themselves when we move past the poverty of holding back. So the basic idea of generosity is to train in thinking bigger, to do ourselves the world's biggest favor and stop cultivating our own scheme. The more we experience fundamental richness, the more we can loosen our grip. That made me stop and pause that part that I read about because if you studied a feng shui, they tell you that depending on which part of your house doesn't have a good flow of chi or has a lot of clutter or problems, that is where you have problems in your life. Like if it's in the living room, then there's problems in the family. That's the family room, or in the kitchen would be like health. If your sinks are clogged up and your sink is dirty and full of dishes, then it's digestion, health wise. Also the bathrooms and bedrooms is like relationships or sex life, or that's in feng shui how they say, but it manifests in your house. Like you could see in the house how you have the flow of the energy, how it is, and there's blockages. And this was saying how, because I've watched like Hoarders, the show Hoarders, and you see people have like so much stuff where they can't even walk in. They have to like, shimmy through like sideways, and don't look at all of this stuff back there. But they don't have any room to like walk in or do things in so this was saying, so generosity is when you learn how to give. And when we feel inadequate and unworthy, we hoard things because we're so afraid of losing and afraid of feeling even more poverty stricken than we already do. And this stinginess is extremely sad. So in my mom's like years, like final years, she started collecting things. It was after her oldest son. It's very hard for a parent to bury a child. But when her oldest son, after he passed away, she started saving stuff, like just like hoarding stuff. And it was a lot. He really liked the Christmas. Like he liked Christmas. He liked the food gathering and all of that stuff. So she started like just collecting Christmas stuff. Like she had so much like drawers of just like Christmas towels, Christmas sheets, Christmas table mats, Christmas decorations, Christmas this, Christmas that, Christmas sweater, like everything Christmas. Like she just had so much and she did not want to get rid of any of it. And I knew that it was like something, that it tied to something because it always manifests just in like a physical, and it would like hurt her. Like if I would tell her like, oh, there's, because I would volunteer at the shelter and there was like these people that had just got a place and they needed like decorations and stuff for Christmas. And so she had a lot. And so I told her, I said, why don't you give some of them? And it just like, it hurt her to like think about giving, you know, giving part of it away. Like it was, and even though she had so much, like so much that she couldn't even, like, she wouldn't even see it or she couldn't even use it, and but it was just so much. But it was like a pain, like for her to like lose it, like to get rid of it. It was like she had to have it. And this right here, it's like it reminded me, like when I read it, it reminded me of that because yeah. So there is still more pages. That's page 99. And this chapter has until page 106. But I hung clothes outside and I have to go bring it in. So I'm gonna come back and finish, but I'm just gonna think about that one. What it was talking about, the first paramita, which is generosity. And it said that there's 5 of them: generosity, discipline, patience, exertion, and meditation. So right now it was talking about the generosity, the journey of learning how to give. Okay, so bendiciones.